You see,
¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Monday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday morning. It is the start of the week again. We've got plenty of stuff to go through. So let us get started. How's everybody doing? I hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. Um, I guess we should start with a good meme article. Let's do that. I think this is a good meme. Donald Trump endorses Sarah Palin in Alaska special election because of course. Because of course. Former President Trump has endorsed former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin after just days after the ex-vice presidential candidate announced her run for Congress. Sarah Palin is tough and smart. Oh man. Out of all the words chosen, out of all the words that you could possibly choose to describe Sarah Palin, I think smart is at the very bottom of that list. Sarah Palin is tough and smart and will never back down, and I'm proud to give. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. This is a Trump quote. I'm sorry. This is a Trump quote. Sarah Palin is tough and smart and will never back down. And I am proud to give her my complete and total endorsement and encourage all Republicans to unite behind this wonderful person and put her campaign to put America first. Uh-oh. Sarah shocked many when she endorsed me very early in 2016 and we won big. Well, I don't know about that, but, okay. Palin announced her candidacy to replace the late Alaska Representative Don Young on Friday, just 45 minutes before the filing deadline for the race. I realized that I have very big shoes to fill, and I plan to honor the representative's young legacy by offering myself up in the name of the service to the state he loved and fought for. Jesus. Trump also referenced Palin's campaign on the presidential ticket with late Senator John McCain, saying she lifted the McCain presidential campaign out of the dumps despite the fact that she had to endure some very evil, very stupid, and jealous people within the campaign herself. No, I think it was the exact opposite. I think having someone as divorced from reality as Sarah Palin did McCain more harm than anything. Hard to think that John McCain that she was elevating John McCain. Trump referred to Palin as a quote wonderful patriot. Oof. Yikes. And said her congressional bid mean that there'll be true America First fighter on the ballot. We all know what America First means. Not good. The special election to replace Young is set to take place in the summer. This summer with primaries on June 11th and the general election in August 16th. That's funny. The Hill removed its comments section as there are many forums for readers to participate in a conversation, just not here. Okay. That's funny. Anyways, Alaska. If this is who you want to represent you, I mean, I guess they're in a bid to take Florida's spot, I guess. Hey, Stony Progressive. Sarah Palin running for anything? Yep. Yep. Hey, Heat, how's it going? Clown show? Yep. Maybe Alaska's trying to take Florida's space. Florida's spot for clown politicians, for most delusional politicians, maybe. Maybe that's the deal. I accidentally turned on the captions for Twitch. They're not very accurate. Interesting. I have like my I have my automatic captions, and I think Astro said the same thing. It's not exactly the same accurate. I don't know, they're experimental captions, the software anyways. If so, should we take them off because they're continuing to not be very accurate? Oh, that was perfectly captioned. Okay. Well, that works then. Everything else you said was just kind of jumbled. Yeah, so maybe it's better to take it off, if that's the case. Okay. Well, it was a neat, experimental thing anyways. Maybe in the next update they'll have a better software. She was a local celebrity? What? I did not know that. What? Really? I didn't know that. Interesting. Well, let me know what you find. Alright, enough of this, Oh, she eloped? Alright, let me, move on with this one. Someone correct me if you know. Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought she was just... I don't know. Starbucks union claims unfair labor practices after termination of SWU leader. Tensions continue to grow between local Starbucks employees and the coffee corporation. 5 shops in Western Newark area decided to unionize, and no members say an employee was fired because of that choice. Right, because it's never about you can't fire people based on their decisions to organize. You just find some BS loophole, like we're about to find out. You'll just find some BS loophole. Oh, there you go. 1984, Palin won the Miss Wasilla beauty pageant. She finished third as second runner-up in the Miss Alaska pageant, where she won the title of Miss Congeniality. Yeah, can we just, like, not do the whole, like, celebrity thing as politicians? That should have been a red flag right there. That should have been a massive red flag. The right is super shallow, true. And now union members say an employee was fired because of that choice. The store making those claims against Starbucks is on Transit Road in Depew. They just won their union vote a few weeks ago, and after their union vote, they fired Angel Krempa, who's one of the leaders at the store. Spokesperson Reggie Borges said that the union had nothing to do with the termination. Yeah, of course. A partner's interest in a union does not exempt them from standards that we've always held at Starbucks. Yeah, okay, buddy. I'm a press capital X on that one. We're gonna hold our standards to that consistency for all partners. Angel Krempa also said that you also led the unionization efforts for the Depew locations. When she received her termination papers, she thought it was a joke. I was fired yesterday, and the reasons for firing me are that I was late 2 times. Twice, folks. Late twice, fired. They said I didn't use the proper form of communication channels. Borges told News 4 that the corporate's policy state employees must call the store and inform them of late arrivals. He said Krempa did not follow those protocols, although she said she did. Yeah, I'm gonna press like super capital X to doubt on that one. I hope she has the means to fight that, because that's some BS right there. I have the time logs and the proof showing I did use and went through the proper channels and everything like that. Morris said that wasn't an isolated incident, and the Starbucks Corporation raised concerns months before the store chose to unionize. Specifically to Angel, we have a track record of her dating back to prior to November. Really, she was at the point where she got a final written warning of behavior and attendance issues, and that behavior has not changed. Krempa is hopeful this boycott puts the situation into perspective for customers. My coworkers get paid, I think, $16 an hour as a barista. That's 2 drinks for most of the time. That's 2 drinks, and they don't know we are making such a profitable turnover for this company, and we don't see any of it. True. I read about a woman who was let go from Walmart after having a miscarriage on the sales floor. Jesus. That's beyond, that's horrifying. Oof. Oh, you're going through some traumatic experience? I don't think you've thought about how it actually affects the team. How does it help the company or medical emergency? Right. You're having, I see you're having like a massive like medical emergency, but like have you considered how this affects the team? Because here at Walmart, we're family, okay? Here at Walmart, we are family.
on the plus side, I will say that it is awesome the fact that so many stores have decided to unionize, with the latest one, and I think the biggest victory so far has been the Amazon warehouse in Staten Island that successfully won their unionization votes by a what seems to have been a comfortable, very, very good margin of unionization, and it was led by I think his name was Christopher Smalls. Yeah, I think that was his first name. Was led by the same guy who was fired under the same dubious pretexts that this person was fired under. All because they were trying to organize. And now, that same dude is the, Oh, but Christian. Okay, gotcha. Christian Smalls. Okay, gotcha. Thank you for the correction. Christian Smalls was the same dude who also got fired under these dubious circumstances, and now is the president of the union. And there are several other stores who are set to either begin their election or move in that direction. Hopefully this encourages more efforts across the country for these unionization efforts. Because if a warehouse owned by Amazon, despite all odds, despite Amazon spending millions and millions of dollars to avoid or to union bust, if that still happened, then that should encourage anybody when it comes to unionization. I'm gonna get you a bong. It's too much to handle sober anymore. Well... I don't dispute that. So silver lining, unionization efforts have been increasing around the country, and that's something to be happy about. Sorry I'm late today. No, it's all good. At least you're here. Alright, we've got a good meme here. We've got a good meme here. 22 seconds of good memes.
The more shots you get, the more...
So I have to preface this with, this is obviously not true. The purpose of this is to show the delusional state that these folks are living in, okay? This is not based on any sort of reality whatsoever. That being said, please tell us, expert Sherry.
The more shots you
Tenpenny.
get, the more you destroy your immune system, and the faster that happens. And it's anticipated. The German data says...
Look at that.
That by
hitting us with that facts and logic.
the end of 2022, every fully vaccinated person over the age of 30 may have the equivalent of full-blown vaccine-induced immune-suppressed AIDS.
Oh no.
The more shots you get, the more you destroy your immune system and the faster.
Oh my god. We're now moving into we're now moving into vaccination gives you AIDS. Yeah. Yeah, we're moving into vaccination gets you AIDS into this we're at that stage. Needless to say, it's obvious bullshit. There's literally nothing to suggest that that is the case. Yeah, it's a total lie. Exactly. That's an absolute total lie. Oh yeah, no, this is completely she's completely super serious. Unironically. Right. Not just immune problems, not just like, potential whatever side effect that you want to put down. No. Full-blown AIDS by the end of this year, folks. Mark your calendars. Mark your calendars, folks, if you've been fully vaccinated. End of 2022. At least this is a bit less homophobic than the last AIDS. Yeah, this one is just kind of playing off the idea that the vaccine causes like massive problems, and like for some reason this person decided that that's what she's gonna go with. How's it going, Big Dangly? Thanks. That's true, because AIDS is super triggering for conservatives. See the 80s. Wait, did she say full-blown AIDS? Yeah, we can play the clip again. The expert, Sherry Tenpenny.
After that happens. And it's anticipated, the German data says that by the end of 2022, every fully vaccinated person over the age of 30 may have the equivalent of full-blown vaccine-induced immune-suppressed AIDS.
Vaccine-induced immune-suppressed AIDS. That doesn't even make sense, okay? If you break that down, it doesn't even make sense. What is the problem? Getting dead viruses and spreading those? I thought vaccinations only gave you full-blown AIDS if you say that. Yeah, you gotta wait. Yeah, you may have to you may have to do some slur-induced ritual. Yeah, I don't know. This is just delusional. Absolutely delusional. The entirety of the sentence didn't even make sense. The entirety of the vaccine-induced immune-suppressed... What? Hold on. I gotta listen to this again.
Vaccinated person over the age of 30 may have the equivalent of
Equivalent. Okay, equivalent.
full-blown vaccine-induced immune-suppressed AIDS.
Vaccine-induced immune-suppressed AIDS. Okay. I have like so many questions. Like how does one get vaccine-induced immune-suppressed AIDS? The equivalent of. How does one even get that? What component is what delivers that? Yeah, no, it's complete BS. It's complete BS. I'm just trying to, uh, I'm just trying to like poke holes in it logically. Um, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. In no way could you make like, could you even begin to make this into a reality? There's nothing in the composition of the vaccine that would even remotely come close to giving you the equivalent of whatever the heck she's talking about. You heard about the German guy who got 90 COVID shots? Holy yikes. Jesus. That's that's a tad bit too much, don't you think? That's a tad bit over the top. If anyone is getting sick, he is. Well, yeah, I mean like 90 COVID shots. That's not what the recommendations are. That's nowhere. That's unbelievably. That's just way too much. Oh, okay, I see. He was trying to and the reason why he was trying to do that is to forge vaccination cards. Had up to 90 vaccines so he could sell the vaccination cards. Okay. A 60-year-old man allegedly had himself vaccinated against COVID dozens of times in Germany in order to sell forged vaccination cards with real vaccine batch numbers to people not wanting to get the vaccine themselves. Wow. Is this guy like still in jail or what? Oh, this is today. I mean, He's alive. He's definitely alive. The suspect wasn't detained, but is under investigation for unauthorized issuance of vaccine cards and document forgery. Yeah. He was caught at a vaccination center in Eilenberg in Saxony when he showed up for a COVID-19 shot for the second day in a row. Police confiscated several blank vaccination cards from him and initiated criminal proceedings. I mean, he's clearly alive, so I don't know. Maybe he's alright. Alright, just to piggyback off that, one more meme article. One more meme story, I guess.
The reason why this prayer is so effective is because God gives us that tool. He gives us the tool to destroy the enemy. God won already. He's going to destroy the enemy. You have to believe in him. Accept Jesus Christ as your savior. He will not allow anything bad to happen to you. And if you look at who created, who was responsible for delivering this death serum, it is the demonically inspired spawns of Satan. Look at these people. They are not even humans.
They are not even humans. It is the devil.
The reason why this prayer is so effective is because God gives us that.
Yeah. The right's not doing alright. Not good. Not good. Alright, back to serious stuff, alright? Let's get out of the delusional land. Federal Reserve issue warnings over brewing U.S. housing bubble. We've alluded to the fact that it's quite possible that this is where we're heading. I believe we have talked about this over a year ago. Home buyers have faced a tough choice during the pandemic, swallow rapid price increases to forego typical steps like house inspections. Jesus. Or risk getting left out of the real estate market. Those dynamics have caused some observers to question whether the US is repeating the housing bubble of early 2000s, which led to a painful crash in 2006 and the Great Recession the following year. One thing I will say is that, well, the circumstances are different. That's for sure. I mean, it's worrying, but the circumstances are definitely different, and there are different guardrails put in place that didn't exist in 2000s, right? The answer warns the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas is that the property market is showing signs of a brewing U.S. housing bubble that may be unsettling to millions of potential home buyers who are coping with myriad financial pressure points. For one, mortgage rates are swiftly rising, reaching an average of 4.67, Jesus, for a fixed 30-year loan for the week of March. For the week that ended March 31st, the highest since 2018, according to Freddie Mac, and the national median listing price for a home has jumped to a record $405,000, Realtor.com said on March 31st. I mean, like, I would like to see more sources, but an average price of $405,000 is not good. Not good at all. Home buying jumped during the pandemic due to a confluence of trends. For starters, millennials now represent the largest U.S. generation and have moved into their prime home buying years. Yeah, but we're also one of the most effed generations too. So, okay, just because we've moved into home buying years doesn't mean that all of us are capable of. And the pandemic has forced millions of people to work from home, prompting some to move out of cities or look for bigger dwellings to cope with reality of remote work. The typical listing price for a home has jumped 27%, almost 20%, 27% in the past 2 years. Jesus. I've got to start school. See ya. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate that. To be sure, rapid rise in home values doesn't necessarily signal a bubble, but real housing prices diverge from market fundamentals when there's a widespread belief that today's robust price increase will continue. If many buyers share this belief, purchases arising from FOMO can drive up prices and heighten expectations of strong house pricing gains. Meanwhile, more home buyers are opting for adjustable rate mortgages or ARMs, since these loans offer a lower initial rate for a number of years and then adjust annually at higher rates. Oh, no, that's, yikes. No. Hey, Cheeseburger, how's it going? Cheeseburger Freedom Eagle. To examine whether the current dynamics could reflect the bubble, Dallas Fed economists dug into 3 different market metrics. Their conclusions are signs of a market tipping point. First, the economists look at statistical models that track exuberance, or when prices increase at an exponential rate that can't be justified by economic fundamentals. Well, that's because a lot of these things are also just based on, like, feelies, right? Like, that's literally what it is. You assign value based on how you feel that value is, how you feel that property is worth, because of how you feel about what the area is, right? The surrounding area. Not to mention, and this is true, you need housing, right? That's kind of a thing that you need. When their exuberance measure reaches 95% threshold, that signals 95% confidence that the market is experiencing abnormal explosive behavior. The current exuberance measure is 115%. Next, the economists look at another measure of valuation, comparing home prices against the sum of discounted future rents. It is a similar concept to how investors determine the value of a stock by looking at discounted future dividends. The economists, feelies. Okay. That too is showing exuberance that is comparable to the run-up of the last housing boom. Third, analysts examine the ratio of home prices to disposable income and another measure of house affordability. Yeah, I mean, okay. This hasn't risen to the level of exuberance, but economists noted that household disposable income was buoyed during the pandemic by stimulus checks, as well as a decrease in household spending due to lockdowns, transitory factors, and, in other words, transitory factors. Daniel Hale, chief economist at Realtor.com, said that while the current rate of home price growth was unsustainable, it was hard to predict when the price increase will slow. Double-digit price increases, rent increases can't go on forever. Yeah, well, there are certain folks who would see it that it continues. That's very interesting. Why these things can't go on forever? But I thought the whole point was infinite growth. Maybe that's also just fantasy. Hale said that rising mortgage rates, which makes housing less affordable, should slow the pace of a price increase somewhat. When mortgage rates were falling, that helped cushion high housing costs because people had smaller monthly payments. Now rates are moving in the opposite direction and will increase the monthly cost. That means prices will not be able to sustain the double-digit pace of growth. Yeah, the issue here is that higher interest rates are going to force prices to go down. I mean, usually that's how that works. There are a few differences between 2022 and 2006 real estate peak that collapsed into a global financial crisis that took years to heal. For one, household finances are in better shape than they were in 2006, and the type of easy-to-secure loans that fueled the housing boom is a thing of the past. Back then, some banks doled out so-called liar's loans or mortgages that required little to no documentation of income. Today's banks require buyers to verify their income to qualify. Oh, yeah, definitely. A fear of missing out, but there's something else going on that economists have flagged as worrisome. There's a fear of missing out wave of exuberance involving new investors and more aggressive speculation among existing investors. And there it is, folks. There's the crutch of it, right? There's the crutch of it. Capitalism treats water, food, and shelter like suggestions, right? Like, just commodities that are optional. Or, if you don't have these things, if you don't have the money to get these things, then too bad. And here we get to the crutch of the issue here. A fear of missing out wave of exuberance involving new investors and more aggressive speculation among existing investors. I suspect that a lot of these are these large investment firms who are, for a lack of a better word, hoarding these houses. Folks like BlackRock. That's the real crux of the issue here. I have no idea what that means. A fallout from a housing correction from the current real estate boom wouldn't be similar to the 2007 to 2009 financial crisis, they said, but for some recent homeowners, a correction can still prove to be painful. The TLDR of this is a lot of these problems are artificially inflated and you've got these large investment firms buying up houses. FOMO? I wish I understood what you were talking about, friend. It's called negative equity. Negative equity is when you lose value on your house, right? Hold on. Yeah, okay, there you go. Yep. Negative equity occurs when the real estate value falls below the outstanding balance on the mortgage. Yep. There you go. Okay. Yeah, I know what FOMO is. I'm saying, like, are you talking about the article? Right, mortgage is greater than the house value. Yep. I mean, by definition, a mortgage will always, I don't know. Some people who have made money on their house, like 40K over 5 years, and the most that was done is a coat of paint. Artificial inflation for single family homes is insane, but why won't millennials have kids or buy houses? Yeah, exactly. Mortgage is greater than the house value. Yeah. Gotcha. I think at this point, entering the market is going to be difficult. But the whole point is to point out the fact that it is incredibly hard to become a homeowner. It is unbelievably hard to become a homeowner. And some of that is due to just feelies, the whims of a imaginary kind of or arbitrary value. Some of it is because all of these large investing corporations, investment firms such as BlackRock, have just hoarded a bunch of houses. Not to mention with some of the conditions these homes that old people left them in, they're just money pits. Yeah. I am a millennial homeowner. It sucked and I got lucky. Yeah, I mean, like, we're on the cusp of that. And I kid you not, ain't no way we could have done that alone. Housing markets have been messed up since '93. I don't know about that. I couldn't tell you. Yeah, like you'll get like a cheap house, and if it's one of those like fix me up houses, oh man, that's depending on what fixes are necessary, that could be more trouble than it's worth. It sucked and I got lucky. 21st millennium vibes, true. Do you think that taxing BlackRock for hoarding would help? I think that, like, I think you've got to be much more heavy-handed. Maybe if you're like a massive investment firm, you need to put like limits on the physical amount of properties that you can take. I mean, like, I don't know how to solve that issue. The thing that I do know is that you've got to expand public housing. You've got to be serious about providing public housing. You've got to be serious about implementing regulations when it comes to these large investment firms. Maybe limit the amount that they can take. because there's no reason why BlackRock needs to buy up like whole blocks, whole neighborhoods, right? To give you like an example. Weaponizing housing by financial institutions, many of which are driven by, quote, religious motivations, all of which are driven by greed, that should be outlawed. Right, like that's what I'm saying, a heavy-handed, like some sort of heavy-handed regulation needs to be done to either limit just a full stop that you can't have more than X as an investment firm, or after your first I don't know, make a limit, I don't know, 10. After that you pay serious taxes, like heavy taxes. Hey Malkiada. Hey Mayhem Hippie, how's it going? I have not been around and got wrecked by a cold last week. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I think BlackRock needs to be taxed heavily fined. Their activities shouldn't even be legal. Ideally, their assets would be nationalized. Yeah, I mean, like that's what I'm saying. Like, you need to have some sort of intervention to stop these like massive finance investment firms to just gobble up all the housing, and you can do that by either setting heavy, just like strict limits, or and simultaneously increase public housing, right? Create public housing programs, which here are very limited. It would also help to tax a certain amount of these single-family homes that are converted to rental properties. Yeah. Yeah, like if you have more than X, then you will be taxed heavily. I don't know why, but the link isn't clickable on mobile. Which one? The coffee one? I don't know. You know, somebody brought that up. That the link is acting kind of weird. But, here, let me test that. Taxing like that will just see tax assessed to the buyer price, which would be further stoked inflation. I don't think so. Otherwise, the solution will just be to put hard limits. Okay, so I don't think I have a coffee thing. I'll wait for it to come back up on my Twitch end so I can see it and try to click it on mobile. Must be a Twitch thing. Sometimes, I don't know, Twitch can be weird. I organize my community over housing. Oh, that one works. Okay, that's good. That's good. Hey, Dr. Dragon Rider. Remember when I came in on Saturday because I worked 8 days in a row and I thought it was a weekday asking you about the majority report? Yeah, that's pretty funny. I organize my community over housing issues so that I can rant about this, but we need to prohibit entities from hoarding vacant properties and making money off them to be being vacant. Right. Do you know about the rental application grift? No. Is putting hard limits within the law? Well, no, you can just make the law. If it doesn't exist, then you can make the law. Can you please explain that? What is a rental application grift? Yes, you pay for it. The rental applications you pay for. Yes. Putting limits would breach antitrust law? No, not at all. The whole point is to make sure that doesn't happen. The rental application grift says, say I have an apartment that is empty and could be rented out for $600 a month. I charge people $50 a month for $50 for a rental application process fee every time they apply per adult, so I can get multiple fees for roommates. In a hard market, I can pay my mortgage with just the application processing fees and keep it empty. What? Oh my god. And just bury them with paperwork, yep. In Germany, 56% of voters in Berlin elected to strip 240,000 properties from landlords. The rule target landlords corporations that own more than 3,000 properties. Not sure if this has gone into effect yet, but I wish we could do the same thing here for BlackRock. Yeah, something like that. And make it off as some kind of loss for being vacant on my taxes? Jesus Christ. I guarantee if I could come up with that in 3 minutes, it'd be done widely. Jeez. We need to copy Germany. We desperately need it. I agree. That's a great idea. Listen, you don't need 3,000. You don't need to have more than what? 3,000 properties? Nope. Punishing capitalism? Capitalism is punishing. I'm saying application fee for a non-empty apartment. Who says they're not looking for new tenants? Just make it look like in fact it is empty. Yeah. Folks need to organize in their communities, start pushing for local policy changes now. That's a good point. That's a good point. If we can build power locally, then we can try to push for big Fed policy change tomorrow. Well, I mean, at least, like, you do what you can within the purview of what you have, you know? It's not always easy. Channels like this make it 1,000% easier. I mean, like, my job is to, continue to bring this to the front. Capitalism, the management style does not help. There's a lot of aspects that are not helpful. do agree, however, that absolutely any local action that is possible should be done. All right, folks, we've got a couple of more articles to go, and before we get into it, I do need to go take 5 seconds for the chill session. Folks, this month's sponsor is HelloFresh. If you guys click exclamation mark HelloFresh in the chat and use code POGSE2534, you get up to 16 free meals plus 3 surprise gifts across your 6 HelloFresh boxes, plus free shipping on your first box. We've used HelloFresh ourselves for quite a while. I believe about over a year. And pretty positive experience. There are veggie options every week. And of course, the cool part about it is if you do get this service and you don't want it anymore, the cool part about it is that you get to keep the recipes, folks. That's what we did. Exclamation point HelloFresh. Use code POGSE2534. It does help support the channel, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Easy peasy, folks. All right. Just kind of piggybacking off that that article. The ocean is coming for homes, and that's not priced in. Okay. Buyers are oblivious or indifferent to the risk of rising sea levels and need better information about the threat. I agree with this statement. We need better information. We need better information about the threat. The rise in sea levels is on track to increase highly destructive flooding fivefold by 2050. But a new study of home prices in coastal Florida, which, I mean, like, we alluded to this years ago about how this is going to be quite a problem once people do become aware of the issue here, that it's going to kind of cause panic. Because once people become aware in the broad sense, especially in coastal cities or in coastal areas that are going to be prone to climate change, in this case, the rising sea levels, that's going to be, that's going to kick off a panic. And that's going to be quite the scene. Trying to unload all these properties that nobody wants to buy. Yeah. But a new study of home prices in coastal Florida suggests that buyers are oblivious or indifferent to the risk. Governments need to take action to ensure that everyone has the right information about this critical threat. Freddie Mac researchers led by Ajita Atreya found that homes directly exposed to projected sea level rise command no discount over those that aren't. Right, because like nobody is completely understood, or the concept hasn't entirely hit yet about the severity of the problem. But once it does, whew, that's gonna be quite the day. There were discounts for homes in designated floodplains, but that's probably to offset the cost of flood insurance they must carry if financed with a government-backed mortgage rather than a future sea level risk. The findings hold true for investment properties in addition to those bought as primary residences. Yeah, also, insurance prices are unbelievable in Florida. And all the market's willingness to look past sea level risk amounts to dangerous oversight. Oh, no. No, my friends. It's not. It's just as simple as short-term gains. I want to make my money and run before the shit hits the fan. That's why there's so much push to develop in these coastal areas, because they're going to make a ton of money and they're going to bounce. These developers, contractors, whatever, the folks who are in charge of making or continuing the development of these coastal areas, they're going to get rich and then peace out. They don't care. They're going to sell their multi-million, properties and that's it. They're out, And all the market's willingness to look past sea level risk amounts to dangerous oversight. True. About 40% of the U.S. population lives in coastal counties, according to NOAA, and NOAA research now projects an average of 10 to 12 inches of sea level rise by 2050, even if the world manages to cut greenhouse emissions before then. Yet many buyers are clearly lacking important information. This would be a massive market failure of asymmetric information. This is a massive, massive failure. It's part of the reason why health insurance is a problem. The privatization of health insurance is a problem. Florida and many other states don't even require sellers to disclose past floods, let alone tell buyers that home faces sea rise risk. Jeez. And a ranking from Natural Resource Defense Council website, Florida is among 21 states that receive an F in flood disclosure. Nice. Good job, Florida. Good job. Meaning that there is no statutory or regulatory requirement for flood disclosure at the time of sale. Even in the states that require disclosure, they often come at the 11th hour when buyers are signing stacks of closing documents, according to Michael Gerard, director of the Sabin Center for Climate Change Law at Columbia Law School. Renters typically get fewer protections than buyers. I mean, yeah, of course, because it's not, yeah. As the Freddie Mac study showed, insurance premiums do influence behavior. Buyers in designated flood zones tend to discount property values. Unfortunately, the government's flood zones still don't consider the future impacts of sea level rise. Not having forward-looking flood maps is like driving a car only looking into your rearview mirror. Right. Says Joe Scata, a water and climate attorney with the NRDC. Understandably, politicians and their constituents often fight floodplain designations out of concern they will depress the values of properties. Yeah, like almost as if like these things are just like arbitrary. Jesus. In their area. Government, yeah, this is so effed. Because of like, I mean, like, you can't just like call it any other way, I guess. Like, the word would be greed. Because of greed, because of the necessity to increase this arbitrary value of something like, I don't know, housing, is incentivizing the government officials to even fight the idea of giving this information to buyers, because that affects them, their election bids, you know? If they approve these things. And so the cycle continues. The corrupt cycle continues. Government leaders in vulnerable states and municipalities should instead take the long view, accurate. Yeah, like it turns out, and this is true, their job as government officials, local, state, or otherwise, is to look after their constituents, okay? Not the market or this fantasy world. Their job is to protect their constituents. They should be looking at the long view, accurate information, especially accurate information that affects their constituents here and the now. Forward-looking maps would encourage needed mitigation efforts. Maybe. Clearly, there have been some positive developments on addressing the so-called information asymmetries in the flood risk, but real estate realtor.com and Redfin have teamed up with a nonprofit First Street Foundation to provide flood risk ratings for properties on their website, and First Street's founder, Matthew Abbey, said that he would like to extend those resources to more government entities. We're just trying to get people the information so that everyone is on the same playing field. Yeah, of course, disclosure laws alone aren't the solution to the world's climate problem. That's very low-hanging fruit, and yet it's important. Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to solve climate change. The whole point is, if people start to realize the severity of this issue by having the information in a way that will actually directly affect them, then maybe we can finally push folks to actually think about the realities of climate change. Just thinking of old people who say climate change isn't their problem and they'll be dead by then. Bet you won't. Ha! Yeah, well, it's already here. It will affect them one way or another. Yeah, and furthermore, if they plan to leave, well, just using this, if they plan to leave anything, to their next of kin, they'll be leaving them nothing. They'll be leaving them this worthless property that is on the verge of getting messed up by climate change in one way, shape, or another. So yes, it does affect them, whether they like it or not. This is definitely something that's going to need to be paid attention to, as it's going to have severe ramifications in the near future. As we just saw, there's a lot of shenanigans already at work when it comes to housing. This is only going to get worse. All because we need to make a couple of oligarchs richer. All because we need a handful of people to be more obscenely rich. Continuing that trend, dire warning on climate change is being ignored amid war and economic turmoil. Scientists fear that their last-ditch climate warnings are going unheeded amid international turmoil caused by the war in Ukraine and soaring energy prices. Right, you would think that this would actually spur more innovation to get away from fossil fuels, but unfortunately, that is limited. Scientists fear that their last-ditch climate warnings are going unheeded amid international turmoil caused by the war in Ukraine and soaring energy prices. The third segment of the landmark scientific report from the IPCC, which could be the last comprehensive assessment on climate change, the last comprehensive assessment of climate science to be published while there is still time to avoid the worst ravages of climate breakdown, will be published on Monday. Warning, today actually. Is that not it? Wait, today is Monday. Yes, today's... Okay, so it's going to be published today, and we need to finish the Working Group 2 technical summary. And once that comes out, we'll be heading off into the Working Group 3 one. Will be published on Monday, warning that the world is not shifting quickly enough to a low-carbon economy. True. We really struggle to realize that none of this economic stuff has to be this way. We aren't talking about a force of nature which we really can't control. We can simply just choose to stop supplementing the lives of oligarchs. Yeah, I know. It's just unbelievable that, like, human beings have just kind of... now, the here and now, we've just kind of accepted that this is the fact, and nothing we can do about it. Maybe it's because we've been just so... not necessarily I don't want to say conditioned, but put in a position where we don't really have much of a choice. At least that's how it feels like, because we're constantly on the hamster wheel permanently, right? I mean, most folks have more than one job. Most folks work way over 40 hours. Just struggling to get by. Just trying to get by. And unfortunately, because of all of that, little time is dedicated to realizing what the, severity of the situation around is. Although, I think that that's changing. But, if it is enough, will remain to be seen. But the previous installment of the last report, known as Working Group 2, was published a month ago, just as Russia invaded Ukraine, and received only muted attention. Yeah, not on this channel, we're still working through it. Unfortunately, I'm not some kind of massive media outlet, unfortunately. Despite warning of catastrophic and irreversible upheavals that can only be narrowly avoided by urgent action, now, scientists told The Observer that Monday's fresh scientific warning must spur governments to belated actions. Yeah, okay. Deborah Bossman, an adjunct professor of biology at Virginia Tech in the US and a scientific consultant, told The Observer that Working Group 2 was widely anticipated but completely ignored. This is like, I can't stress enough how disturbingly paralleled the movie Don't Look Up is. I mean, like, it's disturbingly accurate as to how this is progressing. eclipsed mostly by the war in Ukraine and domestic issues such as inflation. Okay. Most major media, have barely reported it, let alone analyzed the findings. Yeah. 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 She said that people were shocked by the Ukraine war, and yeah, rightfully so. I mean, like conventional war and the way the way things have progressed in Ukraine, that is unthinkable. That was unthinkable here and now, but it doesn't take away from the fact that climate change hasn't stopped, right? Like, just because you don't talk about a problem doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But the climate crisis also needs urgent attention. Yeah, and it's not like these massive media outlets don't have the capabilities of doing this, right? They absolutely do have the capability of walking and chewing gum. I mean, we do it. I'm like the tiniest grain of salt in the ocean. And I can still talk about political issues and then drive that conversation straight into climate change. I can do that. These media outlets have all the money in the world in 24 hours a day, right? I mean, there's just no way that you can't walk and chew gum at the same time, right? It's very hard to believe that there's just no way that something so pressing as the health and stability of our of our ecosystems that keep us alive doesn't deserve more outlets. But they don't have the political will / political freedom to do good coverage, right? I mean, there have been some, but it's so milquetoast that you have to dig for it. You really do. You really have to dig for it. The war in Ukraine is a terrible tragedy playing out before our eyes, and families rightfully fear being pushed into poverty by inflation, yet seem to be blind to the fact that an even larger problem, existential crisis, is already unfolding today. One that will result in global humanitarian crisis and on a scale never seen before. Yeah, people don't realize or haven't really quite grasped yet, I think, in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I'm sure there's more and more people that are understanding, but for the most part, I don't feel like humans have really understood what exactly all of this means, right? I mean, what exactly means when the ocean collapses, right? The ocean ecosystems, the marine ecosystems collapse. It is billions of people that are going to be affected by it because, and this is true, we kind of need food. I don't think people have fully grasped the concept of what is going to happen when we can't grow food the way we're used to. When more and more land becomes either too degraded, becomes completely uninhabitable due to drought, is destroying the crops. What people are going to do? I mean, like I said, it turns out that we need food to live. What's going to happen when these weather patterns and these, drought and flood kind of things get exaggerated, and people have trouble finding clean water to drink? The ramifications of what that means. There's already, right now, in this current status, a problem with drinking water shortages. There's already a problem with that. Like the Afghanistan people, we have famine and people die for a manufactured reason. Money. Right. And except this one is going to be infinitely worse. When things really get kicked off, when things, because of the ramifications of climate change, really do start to kick off, and I mean worse than it is already now, all for the sake of making a few oligarchs richer, It's going to be it's going to be infinitely worse than that. Daniela Schmidt, a professor at Bristol University and one of the lead authors of the Working Group 2 report, said the world's current upheavals show how vulnerable we are to the impacts of climate crisis already being felt. Policymakers should consider where their resources are allocated, she advised. Due to geopolitical challenges, little political capacity is spent on climate action, and vast amounts of funding are allocated to defense. Yeah, like all of that is going to mean absolutely nothing if you can't, get food. No, the world's biggest military is going to mean nothing if all of the place that you're normally used to getting food from or grow food is just no longer feasible anymore. The biggest military in the world is going to mean nothing if you can't supply your people with water. When people are dying by hundreds of heat strokes in your own country. Homes, to the thousands of homes destroyed in wildfires, which are going to be just kind of the new norm. Billions of dollars of damages. Of homes that are going to get swept up by hurricanes that are going to become more and more powerful. But the current situation also clearly shows people's widespread vulnerability to climate change. Governments have at least been waking up to the problem behind the scenes, said Bob Ward, policy director at the Grantham Institute on Climate Change at the London School of Economics. The IPCC report did struggle to gain attention, but while public discussion may have been muted, governments around the world are now studying. Oh, guys, thank goodness. It is 2022, and now we're studying the fact. We're beginning to open ourselves to the idea that maybe, possibly, hopefully, kind of, sort of, perhaps. Particularly its findings about how to make countries, companies, and communities more resilient to the consequences of climate change that cannot now be avoided. Cool. Nice meme. Wait until the last very second, huh? Oh yeah, controlled burns has always been a thing. Controlled burns to preserve forests and stuff like that. That's always been a thing. It's good. That's a good thing. The report, due to be published Mondays, will deal with ways governments and the public can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, including greater use of renewable energy, growing trees, cutting-edge technology to suck carbon from the air. But it's warning that the world is failing to deploy these methods at the scale required to limit global heating to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels will be muted by the bureaucracy of the IPCC's processes. The report itself, part 3 of the sixth comprehensive assessment of the climate science to be published by the IPCC since its foundation in 1988, is based on thousands of scientific papers from the last 7 years, but the key documents published on Monday, the summary for policymakers, could be as short as 20 to 30 pages, consisting of a series of short messages and data. These messages are subject to intense wrangling by both scientists and governments. Under the IPCC methods, all governments have the right to make changes to the final summary, and some are exercising those rights by toning down the findings and vetoing some of the strongest statements. Jesus, I don't think that should be a thing. Humans Make the Day the Earth Stood Still, a documentary. Yeah. Controlled burns are an ancient and effective tool. True. All the way back, the indigenous folks were had deployed these methods quite frequently. Saudi Arabia, India, and China, and a few other countries have sought to make changes that would weaken the final warnings. The observer understands. Some governments are anxious to avoid policy advice such as cutting subsidies to fossil fuels. Wait, who are some governments? They should name names. They should name names. Policy advice are just cutting subsidies to fossil fuels, even though these are widely espoused by leading authorities. This process of refinement, which has also been a complaint in the previous chapters of the IPCC assessment, is defended by some as producing a document that all governments must own, as they have all had input. But many scientists are growing increasingly frustrated as it produces a conservative and sometimes watered down document that many feel do not reflect the urgency and shocking nature of the threat. Yeah, I mean, like even the watered down version is pretty stark, right? So one can only imagine. This is supposed to be the conservative estimates or findings, I should say. That this is the conservative estimates. And the fact that even hearing this, because the governments have access to the full report before they get to edit them. The fact that they have access to this and still do not do anything, but instead choose to make a few oligarchs richer. This is not ignorance, folks. This is not ignorance. This is not incompetence. This is policy choices that are being made. It's not like they didn't have access to the full report. They made the conscious decision to instead water it down or ignore it altogether. Like I said, this is literally following in parallel the Don't Look Up storyline. We can no longer chalk this up as government incompetence, government ignorance, like, oh, these politicians, they don't know what they're talking about. They do. They absolutely have been exposed to the information. These are conscious decisions that are being done, despite being warned several times. The IPCC, the concept of climate change, has been around for decades and decades. The IPCC itself, which is a intergovernmental panel, has been around since the 80s. At this point, it's not ignorance, folks. These are conscious policy decisions, or lack thereof, I should say. Speaking of which, Right now, we are on page 57 of the IPCC report. If you guys want a full technical summary, the link is there. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll get into it, all right? Yeah, that's the point. You see how I wove everything together? Wove everything together to bring it back to our final destination over here. All right, folks, page 57 of the IPCC report, Working Group 2 technical summary. We got to try to finish this while the Working Group 3 summary got released today, so we gotta take care of that one too. There's increasing evidence to limits to adaptation, which results from the interaction of adaptation constraints and the speed of change. High confidence. In some natural systems, hard limits have been reached. Yikes. High confidence and more will be reached beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. Surpassing such hard evolutionary limits can cause local species extinction and displacements if suitable habitats exist. High confidence. Otherwise, species existence is at a very high risk. High confidence. In human, managed, and natural systems, soft limits are already being experienced. High confidence. Financial constraints are key determinants of adaptation limits in humans and managed systems. Particularly in low-income settings, high confidence, while in natural systems, key determinants for limits are inherited traits of species or ecosystems, very high confidence. Right, which of course, the problem with that is that climate change is happening at such a speed that they are unable to adapt appropriately. Adaptation limits can be differentiated into hard and soft limits. Soft limits are those for which no further adaptation options are feasibly currently but might become available in the future. Hard limits are those for which existing adaptation options will cease to be effective and additional options are not possible. Hard limits will increasingly emerge at higher levels of warming. High confidence adaptation limits are shaped by constraints which can or cannot be overcome by adaptation actions and by the speed with which climate impacts unfold. Right. Evidence and signals of thresholds at which constraints results in limits is still sparse, and in human systems are expected to remain contested even with increasing knowledge. High confidence. Limits to adaptation have been observed for terrestrial and aquatic species and ecosystems for some human and managed systems in Pacific geographies, such as small island states and mountainous regions. High confidence. Beginning at below 1.5 degrees Celsius, autonomous and evolutionary adaptation response by more terrestrial and aquatic species and ecosystems will face hard limits, resulting in species extinction, loss of ecosystem integrity, and resulting in loss of livelihoods. High confidence. Example of hard limits being exceeded include observed population losses and species extinction and loss of whole ecosystems from certain locations. Example would be irreversible loss of tropical coral reefs locally. Large local population declines of wild species have already impacted food sources and livelihood. Example, for indigenous Arctic communities. Soft limits are currently being experienced in particular by individuals, households, and cities and settlements along the coast, and by small-scale farmers. Medium confidence. As sea levels rise and extreme events intensify, coastal communities face limits due to financial, institutional, and socioeconomic constraints, and a short timeline for adaptation implementation, reducing the efficacy of coastal protection and accommodation approaches, and resulting in loss of life and economic damages. Medium confidence. Limits to adaptation will be reached in more systems, including, for example, coastal communities, water security, agricultural production, and human health as global warming increases. Medium confidence. Hard limits beginning at 1.5 degrees Celsius are also projected for coastal communities reliant on nature-based coastal protection. Medium confidence. Adaptation to address risk of heat stress, heat mortality, and reduced capacities for outdoor work for humans face soft and hard limits across regions become significantly more severe at 1.5 degrees Celsius and are particularly relevant for regions with warm climates. High confidence. Yikes. Beginning at 3 degrees, hard limits are projected for water management measures, leading to decreased water quality and availability, negative impacts on health and well-being, economic losses in water and energy-dependent sectors, and potential migration of communities. Medium confidence. Soft and hard limits for agricultural production are related to water availability and the uptake of effectiveness of climate-resilient crops, which are constrained by socioeconomic and political challenges, i.e., there's no real significant movement to address this at all. And as we were talking about earlier, governments don't seem to be interested in taking the necessary aggressive actions. And this has huge ramifications, especially when it comes to food, water, the little things in life, you know? In terms of settlements, limits to adaptation are most often pronounced in smaller and rapidly growing towns and cities, including those without dedicated local government. Medium confidence. At the same time, legacy infrastructure in large and mega cities designed without taking climate risk into account constraints innovation, leading to stranded assets with increasing number of people unable to avoid harm, including heat stress and flooding without transformative adaptation. Medium confidence. Across the regions and sectors, the most significant determinants of soft limits are financial governance, institutional and policy constraints. High confidence. The ability of actors to address these socioeconomic constraints largely influence whether additional adaptation is able to be implemented and prevent soft limits from becoming hard limits. Global and regional evidence show that climate impacts may limit the availability of financial resources, stunt national economic growth, result in higher level of losses and damages, and thereby increasing financial constraints. Medium confidence. Information, awareness, and technological constraints are also high in multiple regions. High confidence. For example, awareness of anthropogenic climate change ranges between 23 to 66% of people across 33 African countries, with low climate literacy limiting potential for transformative adaptation. Education is important. That footer? What this? Hold on, folks. Okay. There we go. Cool. Sorry about that, folks. Just gotta make sure that I'm good to go. The potential for reaching adaptation limits fundamentally depends on emission reductions and mitigating global warming. High confidence. Under all emission scenarios, climate change reduces capacity for adaptive responses and limits choices and opportunities for sustainable development. The ability of actors to overcome socioeconomic constraints determine whether additional adaptation is able to be implemented and prevent soft limits from becoming hard limits. Medium confidence. Above 1.5 degrees of warming, Celsius of warming, limits to adaptation are reported for human and natural systems, including coral reefs, high confidence, regional water availability, medium evidence, high agreement, and outdoor labor and existing tourism activities. Evidence for maladaptation is increasing in some sectors and systems, highlighting how inappropriate response to climate change creates long-term lock-in of vulnerability. Yeah, this is, yikes. And this is the whole thing of, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure. Exactly the phenomenon that we're witnessing here. Refusal to acknowledge this problem and act accordingly is just locking in future unnecessary suffering. Creates long-term lock-in of vulnerability, exposure, and risks that are difficult and costly to change. Very high confidence, and exacerbates existing inequalities for indigenous peoples, vulnerable groups, impeding achievement of SDGs, increasing adaptation needs, and shrinking the solution space. High confidence. Decreasing maladaptation requires attention to justice and a shift of enabling conditions towards those that enable timely adjustments for damages to be avoided or minimized and opportunities seized. High confidence. Actively blocking off time to relax is such a different mindset I've had for most of my life. I didn't think you just do that. Being taught by the general public to value yourself based on how busy you are, even if you're not helping, is exhausting. True. Doesn't help that I rely on others to provide a roof over my head, and all of them are subject to blue collar hustle programming. Yeah. Hey Kevin, how's it going? There's nonstop pressure to always be doing something. Yeah, it's kind of a feature of the problems, right? Until I can pay my own way, a true healthy work-life balance is kind of a pipe dream, but I'll wiggle in what I can. Yeah, it's by design. You're supposed to be on that hamster wheel consistently. Don't pay attention to what's happening. Listen, you don't got time for that, okay? Climate change, the serious corruption, oligarchs that are basically in charge, the fossil fuel industry destroying the planet for the sake of a couple of, oligarchs to become even wealthier. Why would you don't have time for that. You got rent to pay. And that's also being taught that breaks have to look a certain way, or else you're just, quote, being lazy. Man, that's just so asinine. I get it. Anything else is just overkill. Apparently, I'm unlearning this, but still feel sick when my break is longer than 15 minutes. You gotta take the breaks that were given to you, period. Don't feel, don't feel shame. Don't feel shame for taking, breaks that you deserve. Don't feel ashamed for taking paid time off that you earned. What would happen if we stopped praising people for pushing through and started praising people for taking care of themselves and being mindful of the limits? That's a good point. I like that. That's a great point. Yeah, why care about climate change? You got rent to pay. Keep that hamster wheel spinning. That is a very good point. except also take a lot of pressure from disabled, so disabled don't need to fit in, but we belong. Of course. Of course. Maladaptation has been observed across many regions and systems and occurs for many reasons, including inadequate knowledge, short-term, fragmented, single-sectoral, and non-inclusive governance planning and implementation. Yeah, so abject failure, basically, of leadership. This necessity to protect your office by refusing to take away fossil fuel subsidies for the sake of short-term gains. Policy decisions that ignore risks of adverse effects can be maladaptive by worsening the impacts of and vulnerabilities to climate change. High confidence. Yeah, no kidding. Examples including coastal systems, seawalls that enable further exposure through the intensification of developments in low-lying coastal areas, urban areas. Example, inflexible infrastructure in cities and settlements that cannot be adjusted easily or affordably for increased heavy rainfall. Agriculture, the use of high-cost irrigation in areas that are projected to have more intense drought conditions. Forestry, example, planting of unsuitable tree species which displace indigenous peoples and other forest-dependent communities, and human settlements. Example, stranded assets and stranded vulnerable communities which cannot afford to shift or adapt and require an increase in social safety nets. High confidence. Right, so basically, you just have to definitely put as many resources in every single way possible to address this issue. People who push you to do anything at the cost of your well-being deserve to put in jail. It's a form of abuse. Well, I think it is a form of abuse, right? It's coercive, right? Look at healthcare. Look at for-profit healthcare, right? Your money or your life. Your money or your health, quite literally. It is a form of abuse. I agree with that. Indigenous people and disadvantaged groups such as low-income households, ethnic minorities, are especially adversely affected by maladaptation, which often deprives them of food and livelihoods and reinforces and entrenches existing inequalities. Rights-based approaches to adaptation, participatory methodologies, and inclusion of local and indigenous knowledge combined with informed consent deliver mechanisms to avoid these pitfalls. Definitely more information is good. Medium confidence. Adaptation solutions benefit from engagement with indigenous and marginalized groups, solve past equity and justice issues, and offer novel approaches. Medium confidence. Indigenous knowledge is a powerful tool to assess interlinked ecosystem functions across terrestrial, marine, and freshwater systems, bypassing siloed approaches and sectoral problems. High confidence. Lastly, engagement with indigenous knowledge and marginalized groups often offers an intergenerational context of adaptation solutions needed to avoid maladaptation. I agree when it comes to the way, especially in the from what I've been reading in the Amazon, definitely indigenous folks play a huge part, or should play a huge part. Reliance on hard protection against sea level rise can lead to development intensification that compounds risk and locks in exposure for people and assets as socioeconomic governance barriers and technical limits are reached. Avoiding maladaptive response to sea level rise, when we just went over this, right? The idea that they're not even taking into consideration, they're not even taking into consideration the future sea level rise into home prices, property prices. That's going to be quite the surprise when it all comes crashing down. such very high confidence. Oh, sorry, here we go. Response to sea level rise depend on immediate mitigation and application of adaptive planning that sets out near-term, low-regret actions whilst keeping open options to account for ongoing committed sea level rise, very high confidence. Such forward-looking adaptive pathways planning, and iterative risk management can address the current path dependencies that lead to maladaptation and can enable timely adaptation alignment with long implementation lead times, as well as addressing uncertainty about rate and magnitude of local sea level rise and ensuring that adaptation will be more effective, medium confidence. Hey Lostu, how's it going? Other measures only delay the impacts for a time, increasing residual risk, perpetuating risk, and creating ongoing legacy effects for inevitable property and ecosystem loss, high confidence. While relocation may in the near term appear socially unacceptable, economically inefficient, or technically unfeasible, it may become the only feasible option as protection costs become unaffordable and technical limits are reached, medium confidence. Sheesh. Folks, if you haven't already, please take a second to check out twitch.tv/lawsu. Go show them some love, please. Maladaptation can be reduced by using the principles of recognitional, procedural, and distributional justice in decision-making, responsibly evaluating who's regarded as vulnerable and at risk, and who is a part of decision-making, who is the beneficiary of adaptation measures, and integrated and flexible governance mechanisms that account for long-term goals. High confidence examples include selecting native and appropriate species and habitat restoration, unbelievably necessary. Monitoring key social and environmental indicators for adaptation progress, embedding strong monitoring and evaluation processes, considering measures of efficiency and social welfare and social and political drivers and power relationships. Integrated approaches such as water, energy, food nexus, and inter-regional considerations of risk can reduce the risk of maladaptation. Building on existing adaptation strategies, increasing community participation and consultation, integration of indigenous knowledge and local knowledge, focusing on the most vulnerable and small-scale producers, anticipating risk of maladaptation in decision-making for long-lived activities, and including infrastructure decisions and the impact of trade-offs and co-benefits, high confidence. There you go. This is basically the graphic of all that was being talked about. Diverse, self-sustaining ecosystems with healthy biodiversity provide multiple contributions to people that are essential for climate change adaptation and mitigation, thereby reducing risk and increasing societal resilience to future climate change. High confidence. Better ecosystem protection and management is key to reduce the risks that climate change poses to biodiversity and ecosystem services and build resilience. It's also essential that climate change adaptation is integrated into planning and implementation of conservation and environmental management if it is to be fully effective in the future. High confidence. Risk to ecosystems from climate change can be reduced by protection and restoration, but also by a range of targeted actions to adapt conservation practice to climate change. High confidence. Protected areas are key elements of adaptation, but need to be planned and managed in ways that take account of climate change, including shifting species distribution and changes in biological communities and ecosystem structure. Adaptation to protect ecosystem health and integrity is essential to maintain ecosystem services, including for climate change mitigation and prevention of greenhouse gas emissions. Yep, Yeah, restoration of ecosystems. Key ecosystems are absolutely non-negotiable. It is a piece of the puzzle. As these key ecosystems do keep us alive as well. We are getting there, folks. Page 61. Alright? If you guys want to read the full technical summary, I will post this link here. We've only got about 30-ish pages. 30-ish pages to go before we're gonna have to cover the other working group 3 report that was just released. So stay tuned for that. Folks, unfortunately, that is all the time I have today. Thank you guys so much for joining today. Thank you so much, Heat. I appreciate that. Thank you for all the new follows. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for all the support that you guys give. You guys are what makes this channel grow. If you guys enjoy the content, don't forget to hit that follow button. You get 5 free emotes. Also, take a second to go to the YouTubes. Hit that subscribe button. It does help us out. Join the Discord to keep up with the channel. Cheeseburger Freedom. I appreciate that. Thank you for hanging out. Make sure you follow twitch.tv/lostzu. Make sure you join the Discord as I said. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on the YouTubes. It does help us out. Spread the word far and wide that this is a chill place to be for news and politics. Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Join us for Saturday Catterdays at noon Eastern Time. You have a great day. Thank you so much for stopping by, Lostzu. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Join us for Saturday Catterdays at noon Eastern Time. And of course, if you guys want to support the stream, consider checking out this month's sponsor, HelloFresh. Use that code POG SE2534 and give us your support that way. And you don't have to, you don't have to give Jeff Bezos any more cash, right? It's all good. It's all good. Well, not Jeff Bezos anymore, but Amazon. You get the point. All right, folks. Unfortunately, that is all the time I have today. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I'll be on. I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya. Alright, folks. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.